welcome everybody. This is the G-Man. We are in the studio at the Matterhorn Studios in the Reno Town Mall. Beautiful. I am in studio, and it is my privilege and honor to be helping these two gentlemen with their premiere episode on their established show called Military Matters. So I have in the studio Mr. Ricky Harold and Mr. George Fleck. Yeah, you guys welcome.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. My name is Major Ricky Harold, and my co-host is Lieutenant Colonel George Fleck. We've been doing a regular show on the radio now, the two of us, for 5 years, and myself doing Military Matters is 10 years, and I had a couple other show hosts that were part of my program for a decade here. And we're happy to say that we've gone to the 21st century. Now we're doing podcasts, and this is our first production. I'd like to introduce us about our show because this is how we always introduce our show. And I would like to do that on the podcast, just the intro level, so that our listeners understand that this is where we're coming from. We're not doing this. This is out of comes from our heart, because we believe in the military, we believe in our veterans, and we believe in our veteran organizations. And how we do that is we provide our own time. Everything that we do comes out of our pocket. We don't solicit money for us. Anything, donations that we receive or any advertising we have, all goes to support veterans and our show. We don't receive any compensation, nor are we looking for compensation. But I want to tell you, this show is about veterans. It's for our veterans and everything regarding our veterans and issues that impact the lives of our veterans. And our goal is to be insightful, factual, and thought-provoking. So we're doing this for our veterans in the Reno Sparks, Lake Tahoe area. And now we're going to present this nationwide through our podcast. And just a little bit about myself. I started out in the military in 1975 as a brand new commissioned second lieutenant in the United States Air Force.
You're in the Air Force too? You guys,
yeah,
okay.
Yes, I was. Colonel and I have that in common, except he had the fortitude to do 28 years, and I only did 12 years of active duty.
Oh, got off easy.
Yeah, I did, sort of. And then from then I went into the active reserves, and I did that as a Army NCO, and then became a warrant officer, and then eventually a commissioned officer again. So, and that was another 17 more years, well, about 20 years as a reservist. So, and in that period of time, I did some active duty as well. But when I was on active duty, just as a general, I started out as a missile launch officer. That's Titan IIs. I turned keys, started World War III. Thank God I didn't have to do my job, but I was trained to do that. And I did that out of missile silos in northern Arkansas. And if for anybody who doesn't understand missiles, have you ever watched the missiles coming off of Cape Canaveral, where you have the separation from the first stage to second stage, and you see the Earth, and that's the same missile that had the nuclear warhead on it instead of a capsule with astronauts. It was the Titan II. Oh. So that's how big it was. It was huge in a 9-story underground silo with a 15-ton silo closure door that opens and closes on railroad tracks, and it was a pretty elaborate system. And then from there, I went in.
Now, what years was this, Ricky?
From 1975 to 1978.
So this is post-Vietnam.
Yeah, right. Vietnam War had just ended in May of 75. I was commissioned in June of 75. So wow, literally a month after the Vietnam experience ended. Just as a sideline, one of my introductions to the military was I was drafted. We had a thing called the lottery system, and it was the only lottery I've ever won. So
I saw how they were doing that. It was crazy how they would go. Of course, just like you're saying, it's a lottery. If I remember right, of course, they would have a year and then months and stuff like that. Right?
Yeah, it's like you think about bingo and you get the ball comes up.
Yeah.
Or like you get lottery systems where the ball comes up.
Yeah.
Except that it's a month and a day. So the year that they did the lottery was for the full year from January 1st to December 31st. And then all of the dates from January, February. So it'd be
days.
like
Yeah.
1/1 to 12/31.
Right.
And then it just pop up, and
Yep.
and that's how. Then they did it chronologically.
It was like a lotto, and
It was a lottery
like
system.
that. It
That's
was
how they did it. Yeah.
You know, if you can imagine, I'm going to say this honestly. I'm Lieutenant Colonel George Fleck. Can you imagine your life, or the potential of your life and your future is on a ping pong ball in a machine that a gentleman from the Selective Service is going to rotate that little gadget around and stop, reach in and pull out, as Ricky said, your date of birth.
Yeah, and you never forget your number, and the number that in sequence that comes up. My draft board in North Hollywood went to 105. My number was 36. So, and I had a year of college in, so it wasn't a matter of if I was going in the service. It was only when they called me up.
Yeah.
And I got my draft notice about 9 months later, and I'll never forget it because it said, "Congratulations, you've been inducted in the United States Army." Signed Tricky Dick and Melvin Laird, defense. I'll never forget that as long as I live.
Yeah.
It's ingrained in me. So I knew I was going in the military.
So when you're drafted, is there a choice that you guys had to serve the Air Force, or they draft you and say you're going to this branch?
Maybe if you're lucky, if there's a skill or expertise that they see, it may be possible. Now, I know like in the Air Force, it depends on your skill level. I mean, if there's something out there that they really need. But, you know, I hate to say this, most of the guys in my neighborhood, my age, they all ended up being in the Army.
Yeah.
I mean, low income
soldiers,
neighborhood.
But you could have been drafted in the Marine Corps too.
I could have been. Now, that's when you knew you were in trouble, when the Marine Corps was drafting.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Because
that's when we knew we were in trouble.
Yeah.
Air Force and the Navy was not a draft. You didn't get drafted in. It was of all voluntary, always been a voluntary service. Yeah. But if let's say you got drafted in the Marines or drafted in the Army, you had a small window of opportunity to go run down to the enlistment and enlist in the Navy or the Air Force or a different branch of the service.
Oh.
So you did have an opportunity before your induction notice. Once you get your induction notice, you're toast. You're going. That's all. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're whatever branch of the service that you've been inducted into, that's where you're going.
Yeah.
So if you get your notice that you're going and you run down to the recruitment office, you got a shot at getting a better deal. But otherwise, you're going in the Army or you're going in the Marine Corps.
Now, so I want to I want to make sure that this segment, as much as possible, I want your current and future listening audience to know who you guys are. So
I'll allow Ricky to finish it and I can jump in.
Well, I want just real quick, and I want both you guys to answer this. So, because we're talking about, again, something that I can only imagine. When I was in high school, the draft had been done away with. But the year I graduated was when they reinstituted, again, I guess they called it selective service or something like that.
Yeah, you just sign up.
And so there was no draft.
No.
But it was
you're still
kind of
required
a requirement, to register.
Yeah.
And so I, of course, did that. But I can only imagine as you guys are explaining this,
But the saving grace.
Yeah.
If you were smart enough. And it saved me. I come from the inner city. A lot of my buddies were gone.
Inner city.
In Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, Central PA. And I told Ricky this. I remember a time when you saw the selective service car driving down your street. And that street, for the most part, at the peak of Vietnam, was empty. There wasn't many people roaming around. They were in the military. But what saved me was I was going to this college at that time, a community college, and they watched your grades.
Yeah, because you had a 2S deferment.
Because if you're not studying and you're not passing, they're going to grab your behind and you're going to the front line. But a lot of things that happened too, Grady, and I'll say this to you. Initially in Vietnam, you had a lot of West Pointers that were lieutenants and captains. And what I saw, and maybe I'm right about this, I think I am, more OCS kids, more OTS kids in school and officer candidate school. When the amount of West Pointers, so you spend $150,000 to get them that 4-year degree, and they're going through prestigious West Point or going to the Naval Academy, whatever. You're finding yourself in a situation now where a growing number of them are not coming home. They're in the front line. Then somebody finally said, you know, hey, you could tell me on the air if I'm wrong, maybe, but I'm telling you right now, you still had your heroes out there, but you had more and more of those kids from the officer candidate schools and officer training schools. They're now going to the front lines. West Pointers were still there, but yet you could see what was happening.
What I think the colonel's trying to explain is to the audience that doesn't understand the military, which most of our veterans do, is that if you're a ring knocker, which means you went to one of the academies, either the Air Force Academy, the Naval Academy, the Marines don't have one, but the Marines are part of the Annapolis, or the West Point, is that if you're a military officer and you have a 5-year commitment and you're contemplating, making the military a career, doesn't mean you will, but if you're contemplating in that direction, you want to have combat experience, because that gives you that gives you the opportunity when you leave company grade ranks, you go into field ranks or flag ranks, to move up to the top notch positions, because you've been there, you've done it, and you've shown that you have the fortitude to be a leader in the military. And so what the colonel was explaining was that at the beginning and middle of the Vietnam War, all of the academy grads wanted to get their ring, the ring knockers wanted to get their combat experience. Mm-hmm. However, that was done. But as the war dragged down and it became, nobody expected Vietnam to be more than the World War II or the Korean War, 3 years, 4 years tops. And it ended up being 12 years.
Yeah, so the attrition rate.
And so it got to the point where you only have so much manpower pool to work with, and now you have to go to the ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Course, or through the OCS, Officer Candidate Schools, to bring in the officers, because the military at the time of the Vietnam War was a draft military. It was civilian service, and your recruits and your combat veterans that are in service only had a 2-year commitment. If you went on, and guys who did 2 or 3 or 4, they upped it. They went ahead and finished their 2-year commitment and then re-enlisted for 4 years or re-enlisted for 6 years.
But they gave them an out too, Ricky. I think they knocked that 2 to 1 year eventually, didn't they?
At the very end, they did. Yeah. But for the period that the colonel was talking about, when he was saying that the recruiters were out looking for people, they'd already, the manpower pool in the big cities was where, and that's where the people are at, is in the cities. So like I said, I was in North Hollywood, Los Angeles area, metropolitan area. Well, that's the at the time, it was the third largest recruiting pool in the nation. The first recruiting pool was New York City. The second was Chicago. Third was Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So like if you're out in say, rural Arkansas, all right, say in Corbin, Arkansas, someplace high, their recruiting goal may have been 5 guys a month. Mm-hmm. But if you're in Los Angeles, you're looking for 100,000 guys a month.
Wow.
And so the draft board in the rural countryside, they maybe only went up to like 10 or 15 numbers. People in the city, they went up to 105.
So let me ask you guys this before I forget. And again, something that I can only imagine, because even when I had to do the selective service registration, mm-hmm. I was kind of like, okay, so there's no draft going on, but you wonder, once you sign up, you never know what the world beholds. So you guys knew about this. You knew about the draft. It was unfolding. So my question is like, crystallize for, again, our audience, like what you were feeling back there.
Well,
because you had to kind of question.
Let me tell you what I was feeling as an inner city kid watching my friends in my neighborhood depleted, mostly drafts. When I started getting those Western Union telegraphs coming in, and I started hearing about my friend down the street I went to church with, that he was killed, or the guy 2-3 blocks away that I played baseball with, he was killed, or the guy that had auto shop or had shop classes when I took some shop classes, he was killed. You started looking at the cluster of individuals that you could visualize in your mind who they were, and they ain't coming home.
Yeah, it wasn't.
It resonated. It hit you because you could identify more and more as their body counts went up with those individuals personally. You saw their picture. You remember the laughs. You remember the fun. Yeah. Then you realize the fact.
It was the first war that we ever were in that you got to watch on the evening news in color, actual combat maneuvering on TV. And we were just kids, Colonel's 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
But regardless, we watched it from 1962 when it was black and white to 1969, 1970 in color. And it was, obviously you didn't see a lot of blood splatter, but you got to see the combat maneuvers on TV that was sanitized by the Department of Defense. Regardless, you knew that if you were watching this and you're 14 years old, and by the time you're 18 years old and it's still going on hot and heavy, you're going. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of what time. And the reason that they came up with the lottery system, it was simple, that people were disenchanted with the fact that just low income and middle income people were going to the war.
That's right.
And the rich and the upper class and the privileged didn't have to go.
They wrote songs about that stuff. So how did you guys, because there had to be, of course, speaking to your point, George, you're getting news continually about people in your neighborhood that are going down.
Right.
So how did you guys vanquish whatever fear or trepidation that you guys were ready to embark on? How do you suppress that, put it aside?
I'm not sure we thought of it that way. We thought of it about as a patriotic duty.
There you go.
That we had an obligation. Everybody talks about their rights, and you have the right for this and you right for that. Well, you have not just with your rights, but as a citizen of this country, you have obligations. One of your obligations that we don't force people to do a lot of things in this country, but one of your obligations is to vote. Yeah. One of your obligations is to serve your country. And one of your obligations to care about your fellow countrymen.
Right.
In every sense of that word. So when you get all these rights, you have responsibilities. One of those is to serve your country.
Right.
And that doesn't mean you have to be in a combat. I mean, you could be a medic, or you could be an attorney. You could be a layman doing critical work in a munitions factory, or making bedrolls, or there's all kinds of things you can do to support your country.
Yeah.
Like the people that went to foreign countries to help them through the, that was
like Vista or Peace Corps.
Where you go out and you serve your country by helping other countries. And that's what, one of our military organizations called the Green Beret. You've heard of them, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's their job. Their job is to go out and train other forces how to protect their own society and to protect their own people. And that's their job. People don't even understand that. You have to speak at least one or two different foreign languages to get in the Green Beret.
Yeah, I never served. I was off, playing college football and chasing tail and stuff like that,
the good life.
Because of people like you, that kind of, guess made it.
But you asked the question of us.
Yeah.
How did you hold back some fear, some anxiety about, we both came from military families where patriotism came first.
Right.
Family, faith, patriotism. My father was a combat veteran in the Pacific. Ricky talked about his dad. It was a tough time. And I remember what my father went through when he came home. He was a wreck. There was no PTSD. There was no where you help the veteran.
Counseling.
The suicide usually was through the bottle, and they couldn't stop. But I remember that, and I said to myself, my uncles, my family has served. And then I said, my buddies have served. Those that haven't come home and served. And I said, when I get out of college, maybe I can be an officer, and maybe I should go voluntarily to serve. I wanted to. I felt it was as Ricky said, the obligation to serve, give something back to those that had served, to the veterans, their community, their families, etc.
That's amazing. That is amazing. One of the things also, so as I was mentioning, I did not serve. I'd like to think if called upon, I would have
I'm
answered.
Sure most of
the call.
American men in this country would.
Yeah. And but raised with law enforcement. So my uncles, my grandfather was World War II. Papa Sanders.
Yep.
I had one uncle, Air Force, two in the Army, and one Marine. And I can remember I was being about 9 years old. So this is seems like 1973, somewhere around there.
Just at the very end of the war.
And so they came back, and we were out in the country. And again, we were country boys. So we would play cowboys and Indians.
Oh, sure.
Good guys and the bad guys, play Army. And we would put on the windbreakers, a hat and glasses, and we would be going live rounds with BB guns. And so
that's a little dangerous, but
well, I mean, that's, and my uncles were, of course, part of the raising.
Of course, they didn't have paintballs then, but
exactly. So we did what we had to do.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody got significantly hurt. I got this one kid one time, he had glasses on, but he would have got it in the eye if he hadn't had the glasses on.
Right.
But anyway, I digress. So we were doing this one day at a family function. My uncles come back, from serving. And I'll never forget it because it was so, to me, confusing at the time, because here are our heroes, and they set us down on a little, log and was saying, hey, we understand why you guys are playing like this. And they said, but when you grow up, we just want you to remember if you go fighting, like we just did, the people, what you think you're fighting for is not what you're fighting for. And it was confusing, because they were saying basically, you kind of follow orders, but it's at the behest of people that are way above, kind of like the people in your battalion and stuff like that. So
actually, it's worse than that, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Military officers don't make decisions. It's politicians,
exactly.
And it's people in suits.
And that's what they were saying, and I didn't understand that. So one of the things I learned from a Vietnam veteran is that sometimes when we see somebody in uniform, right, and we say, hey, thank you for serving, or find out somebody in the back, or thank you for serving. But this veteran said that if, we appreciate when you say that, but if you find out they're a Vietnam veteran, it's actually more respect for you to say welcome home, right?
Exactly
because of the
they never got
stuff
a parade
that happened. Yes. And so my question is, knowing that, how did you guys do your transition from your active duty to civilian life? Was there any kind of unexpected challenges based on that kind of climate and things? Can you guys share a little bit about that?
I didn't sense that kind of a climate.
Okay.
But what I sensed was that, put it this way, I kind of began to groom myself for what was going to be expected.
Mm-hmm.
I had surrounded myself with people that had gone through the process of transitioning. And I had a pretty good idea. And by then, I mean, you're talking about that 60s and 70s, that anti-war, that hatred. I didn't really feel it because I got in at a point in time where most of that hatred had been expressed. And those that felt it, I didn't feel it so much. I still had warnings out there, wearing uniform, be careful, don't wear your uniform in certain areas. But the blatant hatred that a number of folks went through in the 60s and early and mid 70s or so, that stigma, that stuck with them. And it hurt them big time because they never had their parade when they came home.
Yeah, exactly. They never did.
So I got in the tail end of it. I appreciated from them. They told me what to expect, but I didn't feel as though I had that amount of hatred, vitriol aimed at me. And I had transitioned myself to where, and excuse me, can you hear that? And I had prepared myself for getting out through education, through getting credentials to where I could compete with anybody out there. Just give me a fair shot. Right. That's all I wanted. And I think eventually, it worked out.
I think so too. When the height of the war heated up and when Nixon invaded Cambodia, and then they expanded the war from just Vietnam to Indochina to Laos and Cambodia, 1970. And then Nixon decided that the Paris Peace Accords wasn't going to work. He went into full scale of bombardment of North Vietnam, and they had arc light missions where the B-52s went in there and carpet bombed the north. And it wasn't a bridge or a dam or a major road that was not left intact. and that brought it to the peace table finally. But that was all at the tail end. That was from 72 to 73, and that's when the war ended in March of 1973 because Nixon said, "I'm tired of pussyfooting around. We're going to end this war," and he did. So at least that was a finality. But what it did was it just left everything at a stalemate. And then we kept forces there to train and help support the South Vietnamese Army and Air Force. But they never had some units did, but a lot of them, they were just going through the motions. And and it was their country.
How do the Vietnamese country and people, like, say, view the U.S. now, all these years removed from
they're
war?
one of our best trading partners?
Yeah, they really like us a lot.
They
actually
want us to come visit them. Isn't it amazing, Grady?
Mm-hmm.
The Japanese, the Germans,
the Vietnamese.
the Vietnamese.
They're our best friends.
How does that happen? Because we go in, we think we can do the best job we can do, and then we leave.
Right.
We give them back to them to run their country. And I think what we're
it did, but then, you know what I mean, like Afghanistan, that was way
that's
too long.
That's a disaster.
Right. And so that's where I think, you know, it's
Well,
kind of like you don't want to
nation-building-
be exactly. You don't want to be an isolationist. And it's kind of like, but one of the things I do agree with, say, politicians like Ron Paul, right? Where kind of the basic thing is just like, hey, we don't attack unless somebody attacks us, and then it's game on, right? And to be able to have, again, all the troops in different parts of the world, I guess that's a good question. I'm not to, again, get too far away from what we're trying to accomplish here, but like speak to, I guess, if we do overstay, you know, then at what point do we become, instead of being liberators, we become invaders?
Well, every war and every military engagement that us as a nation, the United States as a nation, you have to remember there's two things that are important: the time and reference at which the war is fought,
right,
and the objectives of the war to be accomplished.
Right.
Those are the two most important things. And if you want to learn anything from history, and I don't want to belabor the point, but you know, the graveyard of military forces through the last 3,000 years has been, you know where that's been? Afghanistan.
Yeah.
It was a graveyard for the Romans. It was a graveyard for the Greeks. It was a graveyard for the Persians. It was a graveyard for the British. It was a graveyard for the Indians, and it was a graveyard for Americans. And let's not forget the Russians as well.
So do you think the reason is a general reason is because of, like, say, religious dogma?
No, it's not religion.
I mean, for that region?
It's topography and geography.
Oh,
I mean, it's just
it's
just brutal. I mean, it's
just
I mean,
bad.
if you go from eastern Afghanistan, which is the Himalaya Mountains, which is frigid and cold, you go which is the foothills is Kabul, and then you have another whole range of mountains in the south west, and then you go to Kandahar, which is a desert. It's just a completely different, where the temperatures are 145 degrees. So you go from temperatures of -12 to temperatures of, I mean, it's a brutal environment. And then the people are essentially most of them are living in subsistence wages. They're farmers, subsistence farmers. Think of the average farm is maybe 20 or 30 acres, just enough to feed your family and maybe put clothes on your back. The cities, there's only a few of them in the cities. The last occupying force that put a sewer system in Kabul was the British.
So this is just like you're saying this is an archaic, just terrible place to live.
Backward. It's ignorant. The people are nice. Okay, basically like any other people that you'd go around the world, but they're just trying to survive.
Why wouldn't they want to kind of embrace more of a Western culture that has these advancements instead of? They
do to a certain extent, but you can't take Western civilization and transpose it on a rural agrarian and Muslim society and force them to have, for them to have girls walking around without chadors is offensive. Okay. Maybe not to some of the young girls, but that's a smaller portion.
You get in big trouble for that, George?
No, but I'm telling you what we're doing. The audience wants to know, what is Military Matters? We're giving them a history lesson. But what are we really about? What is our broad?
How did you guys meet, and what inspired you to start the
Well,
Military Matters?
I think the main thing is, what is our broadcast about? We're trying to get out. We bring those legacy people in here. We bring the World War II veteran, the Korean War veteran, the Vietnam combat veteran. We bring the Blue Star family, the Gold Star family. We bring these people in here personally to tell their story.
Yeah.
And that's what our charter is all about.
I love it.
And I think that's what we have been doing. And
Yes,
we've given you a darn good background based on, the way you wanted to guide us of what we believe in, what we've gone through. But I think getting back to what is this show all about? It's about these people we can bring in here and see them. We've had people that broke down in tears. They didn't want to talk about their experiences.
They start choking up.
It's kind of like a therapy sometimes that you guys may provide for people inadvertently.
Well, it's cathartic for some of them. It's also like we had Tony, who 99 years old. He's a World War II veteran. He literally choked up when he was talking about he was in the Third Army, Patton's Third Army.
Wow!
And he was there at the liberation of the Battle of Bulge. He was there. He saw it firsthand. He was a truck driver, and he was
Jeep
driver.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys? What core message or mission do you guys want your listeners to take away from every episode that you have?
Put it this way. We don't want to come across as some sophisticated person.
Right.
We want to be down to earth where we can sit here and talk to them at a level at which we all can understand one another. I mean, when someone says, why did I live and why did my colleagues die? That's rough. But the fact that you bring people in here that have been through it, families been through it, veterans been through it, the associations that work, the VFW, the DNV, the American Legion, you name it, the VA, all these people.
These are important stories to hear because they actually provide an impetus of why we want to avoid war. Right?
Well, if you talk to anybody in the military, first thing they want to do is not be in a war.
Exactly.
If you've ever been in a war, you don't ever want to go back unless you're just sadistic or masochistic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's nothing like the movies. And when the bullets start crossing your head, it's real. It's not like some video game. I mean, if it's like the president of the United States got almost assassinated and he felt a bullet go by his ear and he was bleeding, right? We all saw that on TV.
That was crazy.
That's happens every day in combat. That's
Right.
just another day in the trenches. That's just another day on the battlefield. That's minimal compared to losing your limbs or losing your eyes or losing, dying in the field or watching your buddy. You can't put his intestines back because he's bleeding out. You just can't explain that.
We cross, Grady, all generational lines.
Yeah. What is your primary audience? Veterans, active service members, civilian, or all of the
Okay.
above?
Let's say from almost 100 years old to teenagers. I mean, we just had recently the Washoe County School District Brigade Commander, 2,000 young people in junior ROTC.
Right.
And he explained in big time character building, essential patriotism, love of country, honor, respect, everything.
Duty, honor, country.
The whole thing. So you're saying broad brush of people. We're booked all the way through July and people want to come in. Matthew Axelson, his mother and father,
One of the SEALs that was in the Lone Survivor.
The only SEAL, one survived. Matthew got killed in the mountains of Afghanistan. 16 other regulars or soldiers got killed trying to rescue him in a helicopter. We bring the real story to the people. And who tells the story? Not Ricky and I. Of course, we'll provide a lot of insight, but it's the guest. They tell the story. What was it like
But we also, not just families and experiences, but we also explain to our listeners and their families and support groups, we explain to them their benefits. We explain to them,
we
explain to them there's so many opportunities through the state, through local, through private, and through federal government that is out there to support our veterans. And most of them, unfortunately, don't know about it. And certainly most of their families don't know about it. And one of the things that we emphasize on our radio show is to tell them what's out there for them. And the sad truth is there is so many really great opportunities the federal government offers, but they don't tell anybody about them. They
don't
have
get the
to
message out.
Well, I think it's intentional because over the years, there's been so many really good opportunities for our veterans to get better education, better medical benefits, better opportunities for their families. Have not a clue, because the government, if you ask a government servant about what they do, they'll tell you, because by law they have to. But will they volunteer it? Heck no, because it just means more work for them, right? So the attitude from the bureaucracy is the less people know, the less work they got to do. Unfortunately, that's the reality. The Veterans Administration is phenomenal when it comes to medical and benefits for our veterans. But as far as getting the word out to the people who need it, the average Vietnam veteran, the average Desert Storm veteran, if you asked them, have you used your VA benefits, education benefits, or medical benefits? They say, what benefits? Or they'd say, hey, those are for people who either want a college education or for people who who've lost a leg or lost an eye or can't walk or whatever the case is. And that's not the case. Veterans benefits are out there for each and every one of them. And if you have a uniform service disability or injury, that qualifies. And you shouldn't say to yourself, oh, well, because, I got a bad ticker, it's just my fault. I had stress. And so therefore I just have to take care of it on my own. Heck no. If you were in the service and you had stress issues, that's a disability that goes with you the rest of your life. Same thing as if you lost a finger or something like that. It's not a lot. You got 10 digits, you lose one, but that's still a disability.
As Ricky's alluding to, we try to provide the expertise. We have a certain amount, but it's limited.
Yeah.
You bring your guest in, and when the guest arrives, from the very beginning, we say to them, by the end of the show, we're going to ask you, did we cover everything you feel you wanted to cover? And would you come back again? Not one in 5 years has ever said no, because we're dedicated to making sure that we honor the guests. When they come in and talk about volunteer work, they talk about education, they talk about suicide, they talk about, if we don't have the guests that week, we're going to get that expert in a week or two. Listen on the radio, and we'll have that person for you.
Yeah. And of course, we're going to be having you guys set up to get this wonderful show that you guys have out to more people for sure. Now, you guys cover some very powerful topics on your show. And are there any episodes or stories that had a deep impact on you guys, like personally?
Well, there's been quite a few.
Yeah. You can tell one, too.
Okay, one each.
You go ahead first.
Let me tell you something.
Rank over privilege.
About a week or 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And we've been trying for 6 months. There's an outfit out here called Military Animal Project.
Okay.
And they have equine animals and they have dogs, service dogs, therapy dogs. Been trying for 6 months to get this PTSD veteran to come on. He came on and he brought his dog with him.
Nice.
And the dog sat right over there the whole time. And I'll tell you what, every time that veteran explained how important that therapy dog was to him, that kept him from maybe going beyond thinking about suicide.
Yeah, something harmful.
That animal gave him the love, the understanding, the respect. That's his best.
Dogs are unconditional love.
Absolutely.
There's a reason why they're man's best friend.
We got Liberty dogs coming on, another big outfit coming on very shortly.
Yeah,
Ricky,
and you mentioned equine.
Grady, one of our production engineers, he loves horses, but the Military Animal Project, they have horses, burros, and whatever they may do, anything that will help that veteran. And it's amazing, the story. It brings a
Yeah.
It makes your heart feel good.
For sure.
That animals are so important to people. They can help save their lives.
And what about you, Ricky? What's your story?
Well, I've got at least 5 or 6, but the one that's just recent that sticks in my heart is Tony Pagano.
Yeah.
Sergeant in World War II, the one we talked about in the Battle of Bulge.
Oh, yeah.
And he was part of Patton's Third Army, liberated the confinement for our American forces that were encircled.
That's incredible. So
And,
that's
he's
got to be rounded
he was,
up.
he was only an 18-year-old kid.
Wow.
And but his story is so phenomenal. He went back to school. He used the GI Bill. He became a medical doctor.
OBGYN.
OBGYN. I mean, this is not an unusual story of our World War II veterans.
That's right.
The thing about World War II veterans, as you find out, like your grandfather you're talking about, is that they never talked about their war experience. Never. Unless they were at American Legion or a VFW and they would talk to their fellow buddies. My father,
I never really thought about that, but you're
never
right.
talked to me.
My it's not his grandfather. He taught me how to work on cars, but he never sat me down and let me tell you a story about when I was in battle.
They didn't do that
one time.
Well, yeah,
World War I veterans are the same way.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't talk about their war experience in World War I until the World War II veterans came back and they talked to them.
The only time my dad talked about it was when he was playing cards and drinking booze with his war veterans.
Yeah.
And then it was pure, I hate to say this, folks, it was hatred because of what they saw in combat. But yes, away from that, no, he did not discuss it.
No, they didn't. And my father didn't explain anything about what he did until I went in the service and came back from combat.
Yeah, because then I guess, you have the relatability.
Right. It's, in other words, if I was to talk to you about a combat situation or something like that, it's interesting to you, but you can't relate to it. I'd get a better response from the wall.
Yeah.
And that's just reality. So you don't really know until you've been there. And then you can share that experience.
Speaking about the veterans community, what kind of issues do you guys think that they're out there that aren't being talked about?
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, we have this area is so blessed with so much positive energy and positive ability to help our veterans. Matter of fact, the Axelson Foundation, they were in the Bay Area and they moved out to Reno about 12 years ago, I think it was. And they said, even though they had really good support in the Bay Area, they said it's 10 times better here in Reno when it comes to supporting veterans and their Axelson Foundation. They said they used to have, this year they've been having annually a fundraiser. All the money goes to support the veterans, support the special forces, and support their organization, which is 100%. They don't get any money at all. It's a complete volunteer organization. But they had one golf course that they use, and it's always filled up within a matter of days. Next year, they're going to 2 golf courses because they have that many people who want to support their organization. They said they always had a good turnout in the Bay Area, but here it's phenomenal.
Yeah. What do you guys think, quickly, not to delve into any kind of political discussion, but the America First, where, of course, like veterans, right? It only makes sense to most people that if there's a veteran in need, versus say somebody that's here uninvited and,
an issue that Ricky and I, and we've had more than one guest on, the whole issue of homelessness for veterans.
Mm-hmm.
There's an outfit in town called Nation's Finest.
Okay.
They're just one of many. We're gonna get them back on the show again shortly. They go out into the community at all hours looking for homeless veterans, and they'll bring them off the street, and they won't be satisfied until they find.
How do they
tell them about the stand down? Tell them about the stand down.
What's that?
The stand down. The stand down. Once a year they have here.
Yes.
Right here in the Reno Town Mall, they have all the service organizations and all the veterans organizations. Yes. They come here and they have a Veterans Awareness Day, and then they go out to the community and support them with clothes and food and accommodations and stuff to our homeless veterans. They walk the streets.
No, the walk or drive the streets.
Okay. Well, actually, just go down to the river, and you'll find probably 1/3, maybe even more than that. One third of our homeless individuals along the Truckee River are veterans.
You see, being
and actually,
you finish.
Actually, probably more than half of the people that are out there with a sign "veteran" looking for food, those are all charlatans. Those are not people who are really.
See, and you wonder about that, right? Because it's easy to write something on a piece of cardboard, especially if you know that you're looking for sympathy from people.
And Americans are generous and very, very charitable or inclined to do so, more so than any place I've ever seen. You ask any European, you ask any Canadian, you ask any Asian, they'll say Americans are incredibly generous people.
Right. How would say this organization, no pun intended, vet somebody that purports that they're a veteran? How do they know? Because there could be people that, like we're talking about, know that they could take advantage of a situation just by saying they're a veteran.
Two things. Well, there's two things. One, if you're prior to 1958, you have a serial number. And then from 1959 to must have been 1992 or 93, they went back to serial numbers. So it's either your social security number or it's your military serial number. Let me tell you something.
And they can choose.
Let me tell you what. One of the things you never forget is your social security number, or you never forget your military serial number.
Yeah.
Those things are ingrained in you. You never forget that. Yeah. It's like your personal phone number. You can't remember anybody else's number, but you do know your own number.
Yeah, it's like your cattle tag. You know what I mean? It's
So all they have to do is ask them for their serial number or ask them their social security number, and you can find out if they're real or not.
But let me tell you something about these individuals that do this.
Okay.
If that person is not a military member, they're not going to kick them back on the street. We have people here that you can pick up a phone, make a call, and make a referral. That's about all you can really do. It's not that they're going to just say, you're not a veteran. If they're a veteran, we're grabbing you.
Yeah.
But if you're not, it doesn't mean we're going to throw you on the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we're going to do is we're going to maybe give a referral, try to help you in some way.
Right. We're not just going to kick you to the curb.
So, I mean,
but you know that most of the charlatans out there are the people who are faking it. They usually, as soon as you call them on it, they just walk away. I mean, they're more ashamed at that point than they are anything else.
I would think so. Now, how do you guys, of course, choose your guests and topics? So you're always talking about your list, George. You're booked. Let's talk about that. Let's get into it.
I want to tell you something. Yeah. Ricky and I coordinate, but
this is the guy that does all that scheduling, right?
Yeah.
I usually look out about a month.
Okay.
I look at the guests we've had on before. They may get a little fidgety in terms of wanting to be back, but we're always looking for new guests. And believe me, we get referrals. We exchange cards. We meet people, job fairs, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But I mean, the American Legion, the VFW, DAV, we got a gentleman that's going to be very unique. We're going to try to get him on in August. He's a 3-time Gold Star family member. 3 times. Father killed in Vietnam, uncle killed in Iraq, brother killed in Afghanistan. Now, how are you going to handle that person coming in? You're going to have to prepare for it. And what I'm saying, Grady, Ricky and I really, when your person walks in the door, you want to have an idea of who's walking in there and how far you can go on a subject. Some freely, they'll talk the whole time. Others, you got to just tiptoe through it. Now, that's going to be a tough one, but he wants to do it. And I think we're going to do a fine. We never had a person like it. We've had Gold Star mothers on before, but not a Gold Star son, a 3-timer where 3 members were killed in 3 different conflicts.
It sounds like you guys kind of a combination of raising awareness of things. There's some healing. You obviously are advocacy, experts for things like that. You're doing all of those things, right?
We're doing it all the time. And it's not about us. If an audience can get something out of it, it's about our guests. Yeah. You don't invite a guest and then shut them down. You bring them in, and I'll tell you what we try to do. We try to prep the guests before they even arrive. Or we come in early and meet the guests early to sit down and break the ice. And let's make sure we got this right. How far do you want to go? Okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's the breakdown of the show. Here's the segments of the show.
What's your dynamic like as both of you guys are your co-hosts, right? So let's talk about that dynamic. Do you guys, like, for example, ever disagree, on a subject? Has that ever happened?
There may be times, but we don't compete. Ricky and I don't compete.
No, it's not a competition.
He's got an expertise I don't have. Right. I've got an expertise maybe he don't have. We kind of blend that together. And I think we've learned, working together last 5 years, we've learned when to, maybe George is kind of like Ricky just did. George is kind of, I know what he's saying. I worked with him long enough, but let me clarify what he really meant.
Yeah, if I don't think he got it across to our audience in a clear, concise way, I'll say something, or I'll cue him to amplify what he meant to say, because sometimes he gets really compassionate and emotional in what he's asking, and then sometimes he loses his train of thought, and I just nudge him back to where he wants to be.
And the same, it goes the other way.
Sure.
And we're not competing. It's not a popularity. You can't have a Military Matters radio show with the dynamics of our guests every week. You don't know. It's a college class.
Yeah. Have you guys ever received any kind of feedback from a guest or a listener?
Oh my!
That like reminds you guys exactly, this is exactly why we do this, right? Like, have you received feedback from any listener that kind of speaks to that?
You know what the biggest feedback is?
Yeah.
Asking them, have we accomplished the objective we set out to do today?
Yeah, we do that all the time.
Would you want to come back again in this show? Yes. And as you're walking out the door, handshake, a hug, you name it. I mean, it's a sense as though they know where we're coming from, and we think we got the grasp of what it was all about.
I guess the best way to say it is that we're not Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson and two A personalities trying to overshadow each other. That's not where we're coming from. We're coming from to amplify each other's abilities to make the audience feel comfortable, as well as get the information that's important to the listeners, as well as the guest who has information to pass out. Yeah. And if we ask questions, it's just to because we have questions, and if we have questions, obviously the audience does too.
Now, we have one of the individuals that you forwarded, Ryan
Gershman.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that we can actually coordinate our schedules. He said that he can probably come on next Thursday.
Okay.
So July 3rd, right before the 4th of July.
Thursday here.
Yeah.
Oh, because we have a show on Tuesday.
He's in DC. So we're talking again, it could be episode number 2, for your podcast, for example.
Well, yeah. And they're a sponsor. Concerned Veterans for America. And Ryan's a good guy. Sure. I mean, he'd be a good one. But Tuesday, we already have, Grady, we already have it booked on Tuesday. You know what I mean? We got some good people coming in. Male and female. We cover the whole gamut. Okay. Military member is a military member. Okay. And that's how we look at it. So, sure. I mean, if next Thursday, what do you think, Ricker?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry to spring that on you guys.
Oh, no. The worst thing is that we walk in Thursday and suddenly he's here. But
exactly.
You see what I mean about coordinating? You coordinate with a guest. You make the guest feel comfortable. Okay? And then you bring the guest in prior to the show. You sit with them. You bring them in here. By that time, they're comfortable with us. We're comfortable with them. Bingo. Let's make this thing work.
Now, how do you guys hope that Military Matters continues to evolve and grow in the coming year?
Well, I don't know, Ricky. Go ahead.
That's a really good question. We look at it like it's a continuation of a long process where we've worked the program so much to the point where we actually coordinate with people. Then we get the information across to our. It depends on what the guest is and what their conveyance is. We do our job if we've informed the public, and if we've informed the public, then that's a success for us. So what we're looking for is if we can get a larger audience and we get some audience participation would even be nicer. But I would think that just at the very minimum, our podcast has to be at least 2 hours, because we cover an hour on our radio show, and everybody wants to do 30 more minutes. I mean, literally, they have more things they want to say, and we've just run out of airtime. So,
and that's what you guys will discover too, with the longer time that you have. And then what'll happen to get you guys out there is that we'll put, say, a couple, 2 or 3 hours of podcast content.
Right.
And put it into a software program, and they'll start spitting out little shorts and reels and stuff like that people can digest in like a 60-second type of thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Like little spin-offs or something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you ask about the future. The word is getting out there. One of our best sources for our show is folks who have been on the show. Referrals. They say, hey, you want to talk? You want to get your organization on? You got a story to tell? Here's a contact. Here's contacts.
Yeah, let's take a moment to tease Ryan. So his organization, what is the name of his
Concerned Veterans for America.
Yeah, and then what specifically do they do? What's their mission statement?
To get the information out to our veterans, what programs, policies, and procedures that the federal government does for our veterans, and how our veterans can contact their elected representatives to let them know that the veterans have a concerted effort in a certain, whatever the topic may be, but they have a voice, and they're their voice for them.
Yeah, and also Concerned Veterans for America, they go beyond just within our country. Their concerns go to Washington, defense budget,
policy,
how it's spent,
Mm-hmm.
the policy thereof,
and budget,
and accountability for
Ryan was in DC like 2 days ago. As a matter of fact, I think he's landing at 6 o'clock. Tonight, or 9 o'clock. Or
well, I
something
was
like
going to
that.
try to get him on the end of July, but if he's coming on with us Thursday, that settles that.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. No, talking about, say, we were talking about some ways that veterans can do some healing through animal care, through the dogs and horses and things like that. What do you guys, this is a little kind of random here, but what do you think about maybe giving other veterans kind of like a launching pad if they wanted to do their own podcast?
Well, sure. Actually, we've had a couple of organizations that have shown interest in doing some on-air shows. I don't know if they want to do it as a permanent basis, but certainly try to get their, like Animal Arc or a couple of the programs that deal with horses, equine therapy or dog therapy and animal therapy. I mean, they've expressed interest in doing that, but you'd have to actually talk to them and see what they're.
Yeah.
It comes down to two things: availability of time and the person who can do that and is willing to do that. Right. So there's some limitations, just like any job, because it's a non-paid function, even though they would be soliciting for donations because that's how they get their money. A lot of them are like 401(k) organizations, and so therefore they have to list their donors. And
the 401(c)(3).
Yeah. And so those individuals, like we were just talking about to the girls in blue, remember?
Well, yeah, for example, we had
two ladies
Marina has the memorials there, the memorial. They wear the blue to remember. We had two young ladies on.
One of them is a veteran and the other one, her husband's a veteran.
A sister, and
I think
first Saturday of every month, they're at the Sparks Marina. They run or walk around
the marina.
And they're wonderful. They have a history. My advice is this. There are so many organizations out there. I think we can do a darn good job of bringing in a number of organizations and people with the way our show is formatted. But I'll tell you where there's some specializing out there that could be done. We only know so much about certain issues. There's expertise out there that they want to have a podcast, be the expert in that area.
Well, we just had a great opportunity here just last week because we had the 250th birthday for the U.S. Army, and the Colonel and I both went to that. And the Colonel got to meet, both got to meet quite a few people. We handed out some cards and explained to people our radio station. A lot of them had no idea about it. And so now we have contacts with people throughout the Army organization, even though we have individuals that definitely know about us, and the sponsors of that organization that had the 250th gala, they know us. David Sousa is one of the
Right.
leading VFW there, about the bunker, and they're very much aware of what we do. But a lot of the other organizations throughout Northern Nevada and in the military organizations, some do, but a lot of them don't.
And we're questioned on that. They're asking us why. Why don't more people know about
us.
what you all are doing?
Yeah.
You do quality. You hit the mark. Military matters, military issues, the veterans, their families, the active duty, the Guard, the Reserve. Why don't more people know about you? Well, it's not because we're not here every week plugging, because we're trying our darndest to reach everyone we can and expand that audience.
Well, that's exactly what you guys are doing. So tell people real quick how that people that want to listen to the show, how can they right now? Of course, we will be expanding as we spoke about. Eventually, guys have a YouTube channel and things like that. But right now, how can people connect with your show online?
Well, they go to our website.
Yeah, I guess what we can say one thing.
Let everybody know, like, what's the website?
You know what? Put it this way: we're going to eventually have this podcast running,
right?
Where we'll be able to reach out to more individuals to support us. But right now, what we're saying is, at times, the rerun of the show on 93.7 FM, and we tell our audience, it may not come up.
So you're talking about the America Matters.
America Matters.
Okay, here's my email you can get a hold of. It's ricky@americamatters.us.
There we go.
And the toll-free number is 844-790-8255. Or you can get a hold of me on my cell phone at 253-749-9074. I think you already have my card.
I do, definitely.
Yeah, but we're located here in the Reno Town Mall. That's at 4001 South Virginia Street. This is Suite 7. When you walk in, you can see our studio.
50 feet on the left.
Yeah, and so if you need to get a hold of us, you can do it that way, or give me a call on my cell phone. I'll answer it, or if I don't answer it, just leave a voicemail and I'll get back to you.
And also, America Matters US on Facebook is what we tell our audience.
Yeah, you can always watch our show.
Watch our show, Scroll down Facebook to the date and time, and you'll see the whole show and see us in person.
And I always like to say that the Colonel and I, we have
yeah, that's why I wear my hat all the time, because they say the glare is too much from the back, But, I just want to say, if you want to get a hold of me, right now, a lot of our guests come through me, George Fleck at charter.net. And that's Fleck, normally how I've been booking.
F-L-E-C-K.
Yeah, that's how I've been booking. F-L-E-C-K. So, I mean, you got info here, and let's just hope, like I said, I hope the introductory show, where it's kind of lengthy, we've gone over an hour and a half probably. But I mean,
it's like we're a little bit after an hour, but yeah, it's good. It's good information. Yeah. People need this stuff.
Well, I'll tell you what, we always tell folks about, freedom's never been free. Someone had to pay for it in the past. They're doing it right now.
That's right.
And we thank everybody out there for what they've done in the past, and including the family members. Ricky likes to bring up thanks to the police and EMT, firefighters, healthcare professionals, and other first responders who serve our community. So there's so many people that are giving back to the community, and we just need to recognize those individuals. We try to do our best from our end.
Absolutely. So any final message you guys want to share with the listeners, especially those who have served or are currently serving?
Well, like the Colonel said, we always say thank you for your service. We thank the families. We thank our active duty. We thank those who especially just got out of the military and need all the assistance they can get. And our veterans out there. It doesn't matter when you served, as long as you served, we appreciate that. You've done your duty for our country, and we want you to be recognized for that. And we say thank you.
And, while we're in the process of transitioning more so to podcasts from FM, we're still at America Matters, Military Matters. We're on 93.7 FM. We're live every Tuesday from 11 a.m. to noon Pacific Standard Time. And I said, we're on Facebook. You can contact us. We gave you information. We always end our show with a lot of sincerity when we say this. May God continue to bless our great nation and those that are serving and have served. So, I mean, that's a nice way, I think, of ending it.
I love it.
You know, anybody comes on our show, we say right from the beginning, get your pen, your pencil, your pad. We're going to give you a lot of information.
And we want you to write, and when we give you phone numbers or emails, we want you to be able to write it down. So we always ask our guests to give that information more than once so that people, if they're scrambling to write it down and don't get it, they'll certainly get it the second time. And one of my pet peeves in the radio has always been, since I've been in the military, is that military has acronyms. We actually have acronyms for acronyms. And so we don't even think twice about what they mean, but a lot of people have no clue. Here's a good thing that the Department of Defense is famous for. As soon as everybody understands an acronym, what do? They change it. So we want to make sure when we if I want to say NCO, that means non-commissioned officer.
Right.
For me, it's just second nature. I know what it means. But there's other people, NCO, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
You start
that means a person who's not enlisted. They're enlisted, but they're a staff member, enlisted staff member is the easiest way to say what they are. They're the leadership within the enlisted ranks, right down from an E5 all the way to E9s. And that's a pay grade rate.
Right.
The services all have different nomenclatures from petty officers to staff sergeants to whatever. Yeah. But we always want to make sure that when we use an acronym that we explain what it means.
Good idea.
Yeah. And we never forget, we're talking to a military, a veteran, family, active, whatever audience. We're talking to a civilian audience as well.
Right.
And you have to be at times, you can't assume that they know, as Ricky said, that they know what we are talking about. So we always make sure ourselves or our guests explain. We always say, would you please explain what you're talking about?
And a simple one would be TDY, temporary duty.
So,
and we use that all the time.
So what are we looking at? Next Thursday?
Yeah, next Thursday. You guys did good. So, we'll get you set up. Of course, we'll just use this little exit. A little bit different. Makes me think of Sanford and Son. I don't know what it is. So, hey, it's been my privilege and honor to interview you guys. And this is the G-Man. Little extension of What's the Matter podcast, I guess, but this is the first episode of Military Matters. Again, I am honored to have done this interview. And so you guys make sure that you tune in to these guys as they are getting this thing unfolded from the podcast world. Okay, so this is the G-Man for Ricky Harold and George Fleck signing off. See ya.